It's Sunday morning and we're waking up today to the news that yet again another feminist has gone on the attack. Hi everyone, it's Lisa from Transmission and it's Sunday morning and we're waking up today to the news that yet again another feminist has gone on the attack and basically gone on record as saying that trans women are not real women. Now this comes a week after the Dame Jenny Murray debacle and the phenomenal piece that she wrote in the Times last week. Now, basically, she wrote saying that trans women cannot possibly be real women because we were socialised with such a thing as male privilege. Now, the irony of Dame Jenny Murray, the white middle class, upper middle class woman of a certain age, talking about privilege is obviously lost on her, hence the term phenomenal. It was an interesting piece and do have a read of it if you can. Today though, it's the turn of Chimamanda Adichie, who is a Nigerian writer and feminist, and she basically has said, well, I won't tell you what she said, I'll let her speak for herself. This was recorded by Channel 4 News.
People talk about, are trans women women. My feeling is trans women are trans women. I think the whole problem of gender in the world is about our experiences. It's not about how we wear our hair or whether we have a vagina or penis. It's about the way the world treats us.
So she goes on to talk about male privilege. So I've got a couple of issues. Firstly, as a community, do you know what? We can talk for ourselves. We can speak for ourselves. I've been interviewed on TV and on radio numerous times. I have no problem speaking for myself, and if other trans women want me to speak on their behalf, I have no problem doing that either. So, we don't need cisgender women or men speaking for us. That patronising attitude is surely the exact same thing of the men deciding whether to give women the vote and the suffragettes saying that as women they could speak for themselves. So again, trans women, we can speak for ourselves. Secondly, again, this argument has risen again, and trans men are completely removed from the equation, as are non-binary people, gender fluid people, in fact anybody of a gender variant identity that isn't trans woman. I've been called in the past a rapist by a trans exclusionary radical feminist because I wanted to enter a women only space. In this case, it was a women's toilet. So I wanted to have a wee, which apparently equated me as a rapist, purely for wanting to enter the women's only space. That is women spelt with a Y, which is how the feminists now try to determine cisgender women only spaces without using the word cisgender. Now, so that argument about whether the whole debate removes and invisibilizes other trans identities is one thing. The argument whether we can speak for ourselves is another. But the key argument here for me is the fact that people are discussing the fact that trans women were brought up with male privilege. That assumes that we were brought up with male privilege. So firstly, let's strip that down. Firstly, these days you can transition at an early age. So there are young trans girls and there are, teenage trans girls out there who have never been socialised as male and never had male privilege. There are also trans women out there like myself who identified, quote unquote, publicly expressed a gender identity as male for a long period of time. However, for me, every time somebody used a male pronoun, time somebody used my dead name, or in fact, every time somebody said sir, mate, or bud, it would be like a knife in my heart. Now, I'm sorry, that doesn't exactly sound like privilege to me. It also meant that in all of my relationships, I was holding back emotionally because I wasn't being my true, authentic self. And surely the key part of privilege is all about being able to be who you are, not have to conform to some outmoded stereotype. Now, for an awful lot of trans women, that's exactly what we did. So the argument that trans women have existed with male privilege starts to fall apart at that point. But it also falls apart further 48% of our community, the transgender community as a whole, attempt suicide at least once. 35% of our community attempt it multiple times. And these figures only represent the people who were left alive to fill out the form. So these are only the people that actually the suicide attempts failed. The people that did successfully commit suicide aren't around to fill out that form, and if they were, the figure would probably be an awful lot higher. Now, part of that, I would argue, is the fact that this idea of privilege and passing privilege is such a poison chalice. So the idea of having male privilege is all well and good if you identify as male. However, if, in my case, I knew from, I would say, my late teens, I knew from that point that I was transgender. Prior to that, I didn't feel any particular gender or sexuality. I tried fitting in as a gay man because, well, I was born with a penis against my will, and I actually liked people with penises. So as I grew up and realised that there was a thing called sex, and I kind of realised that I preferred to do things with the outy ones rather than the inny ones, that kind of meant my only identity at that time, we're talking 20 odd years ago, was as a gay male. I grew to understand my own gender journey, and my own gender identity was very different. So arguably from my mid to late teens onwards, I've never had male privilege. Every time somebody said male or sir, it was that knife in the heart. So this whole argument really does start to completely collapse when you talk about privilege. The other thing, and the really, really important thing I want to say, is again, who are you to discuss our lives? And I find it remarkable that after Jermaine Greer, who said that you can chop off your dick, but it doesn't make you a fucking woman, her words, not mine, and Julie Bindel and all of the rest that have come after that, I find it fascinating that our community in all of these media reports is not actually being given a chance to respond. It's always cisgender feminists that talk about our trans women this, our trans women that. How about letting a trans woman talk? How about letting a non-binary person talk? How about letting a trans man talk for once? But it does go to the heart of a much bigger problem within our community, which is the invisibilisation of trans identities. Now, for some people, their only goal is to get to gender-affirming surgery and then to live in stealth. And what we mean by stealth is somebody who doesn't reveal their trans status or their trans history. Now, that isn't a problem at an individual basis, and if people want to do that, I'm perfectly fine with that. However, it does mean that there aren't that many people out there willing to step up and to be identified as trans. We, in fact, actually produce these badges which say proud to be trans, and I normally have this one on my lapel everywhere I go. One of the other things I hear discussed on the trans community, and I've heard it a few times, is this idea of being not just other, but less than. So a trans woman will sometimes describe themselves as being less than a cisgender woman, trans guy being less than a cisgender guy. Now, this is a key problem, because if we are an invisible community, it means that we haven't got role models, we haven't got peers, we haven't got people that we can look up to within the community and say, oh look, there's another trans person walking about doing their job, going to Tesco's, whatever it is that they do as every part of a normal everyday life. So this is one of the reasons why myself and my partner vlog in the way that we do and talk openly about our trans identity. But it is important, and it is important to remember that when people have discussions about are trans women real women, and when feminists try to close us out of their preferred little club, it is always something that is done to us, not done with us. Nobody asks whether we want to be included in that club. Nobody asks whether actually maybe the identity of trans woman should be revered. It used to be revered in other cultures, and maybe that should be brought back now, because trans women are something to be celebrated. Trans men are something to be celebrated. Non-binary and gender fluid identities are something to be celebrated. Being other does not mean you are less than. You wouldn't say that about somebody's race. You wouldn't say that about somebody's religion. So why is it okay to say something about somebody's gender identity that is so hurtful and so, quite frankly, disgusting? Anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. I've been Lisa from Transmission. Hopefully this video will have come together with a little bit of editing and will make a bit of sense. Don't forget, leave a comment, give us a like, and of course, go and subscribe.